This is a conspiracy. That's what this is.
Just begging to course its way through your veins.
Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
You're into comic books, aren't you?
I'm a nerd.
But you do like comic books.
Comic books aren't just for sad nerds anymore.
Do you think we need one more?
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Do you think we need one more?
Objection, calls for speculation, move to strike.
This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea.
All right, we'll get one more.
Spectators, a comic book podcast with Jake and Jesus.
What's going on, spectators? And thank you for joining us for episode 79 of Spectales. I'm your host, Jake, along with the bearder of baddies. Are we still going? Can we reuse the previous one, Jesus? Along with the bearder of baddies, the foiler of fiends, the wrecker of rogues, our good buddy, Jesus. What's going on, Jesus?
As long as you add that awesome intro music in post, like the last time, I'm okay with it, man. Because I'm telling you, like now, I'm gonna start walking around with like a speaker that just has that music on 24/7 when I walk around into any room. When I walk into any room,
I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't add anything in post.
I know it just happens. It's just natural.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see. It'll either naturally happen or it will not naturally happen. Just walk around with that in your pocket on your phone.
Yeah.
Just going.
Where's that coming from? Why is that always following that guy?
Yeah, that's it. Everybody should have their own theme music. If this is your first time joining us for Spectales, thank you very much for giving us a listen. Spectales is a comic book podcast that asks collectors and creators, what's your Grail tale? Each week, we explore new stories about the comic book grails we love, the epic journeys behind how they were obtained, and how they inspired new creativity.
We also dive into some comic book speculation and how, as collectors, we can help the hobby pay for itself.
So this week, Jesus, if you didn't know this already, we don't have a guest. So listeners out there, if you were like, oh my God, who are they going to have this week? It's just me and Jesus.
Yeah, but that can only mean one thing.
What's that?
That means we have to have, at the very least, the very minimum, one of our favorite things.
What do you? You're not talking about it. No.
Yeah.
No.
You know. Yes.
The listener submitted Grail Tale.
Grail Tale.
Those sound effects are natural, folks. They just happen.
Yeah, we're not doing anything. We're not pitching our voice or anything. It just happens. But yes, listener submitted Grail Tale. That's the only other thing that we really love.
Well, we got to have something to give them, right? Otherwise, why are they tuning in?
Exactly. We always bring it, though. We always bring it. This is a fun one. I haven't heard it. I haven't listened to it. I haven't read it. So I'm really excited. I'm going to be basically a listener getting to hear it for the first time today.
Oh, me too. No, I'm just joking. I know who it's from. And yeah, I'm looking forward to really butchering all of the large words. We had one submitted with somebody with a very good vocabulary, one that I'm not quite articulate enough, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. What else do we have? We've got our normal setup. We usually do recent pickups. We'll do our Grail Tale, and then we'll do comic book speculation. So if you're an individual that likes to sort of flip books to get the grails that you love, we've got some speculation ideas at the end of this episode. I don't know. This is kind of, I feel like it's been a while since we recorded, and I'm a little jittery. I'm a little, I think I had too much Red Bull.
Well, yeah, I mean, we it's been a while since we recorded. There's been a lot of cool stuff. The Gold Key Kickstarter just finished. Very successful. Very excited about it. What was the final tally on that, Jake? How many people are going to be getting a really cool JJ Karloff sticker?
It is 784 backers. 784 people are going to be getting a JJ Karloff sticker. They raised $47,138. That's how many people, that's how much was pledged.
Man, that is pretty phenomenal, man. I think their goal was 12,000 initially. They had some stretch goals. Their last stretch goal was 45,000. They hit that one. I'm very, very impressed and optimistic for Gold Key and the things going forward with that. There's a strong fan base there. and deservedly so, right? It's one of the OGs from comic book publishing. We know the guys are really friends of the show, and we really enjoy talking to them and what they're doing. So I'm just excited that it was very successful. It's one of those cool things in the comic book community that we get to witness, and we were a small part of it. So we're really excited about it.
Yeah, I really think part of the reason it's so successful is because they're doing it the right way, all the way down to the paper, all the way down to the individuals they have working on it and their connection to the Karloff estate, and making sure that everything they were doing was being approved and blessed by the Karloff estate to make sure that they were really bringing back Karloff in a respectful way, but also one that really honors the memory of the man. So I thought that was great as well. I was thoroughly impressed with the amount of money that they raised. But then again, like you said, it's one of the OG comic book publishers. Something else that we should be very happy about was the Spec Tales podcast t-shirts that were on the site or on the Kickstarter campaign as an add-on. 25 limited edition t-shirts sold out. They were $1 a pop. What ended up happening was they had to do, when it's an add-on, there was no $0 add-on, so they couldn't give them away for free. However, they were able to, the lowest number they could do was $1. I thought that was really great of them to do that, to do that for $1, and sold out, man. We must be popular, or at least $1 a t-shirt popular, right?
At the very least $1 a t-shirt, but there's 25 lucky people out there that are getting a really cool JJ Karloff t-shirt that, it's one of those things where it's going to be a moment in time, a moment in history that, 5 years down the road where Goki has like 6 titles on the shelves and they're all cool. They're all, your favorite writers and artists, that you can look back and say this Kickstarter was the beginning of it. And some people, 25 of them, are going to have this little token to remember this limited edition t-shirt and Goki when it started back up, the resurrection, if you will. So yeah, man, that's pretty cool. We have at least 25 $1 fans.
Yeah, 25 fans willing to spend $1. Well, they had to back the actual Kickstarter. At the very least, let's see, what's the minimum back? The minimum backing was $5. So in truth, we have at least 25 $6 fans out there. Perfect.
That's cool, man. We're very, very excited about it, man. Really cool. And also, this isn't it, guys. That's all I'll say. I'll tease it. This isn't it. There's a lot more coming down the pike. I did want to say it, I'll say this, right? Kind of moving on from the Goki, but also at the same time, still relevant. It's the tip of the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg. There's so much stuff coming, so many cool Grail tales coming, so many cool collaborations, at least in our opinion, that we have, ideas for and hopefully lined up. So we'll let you guys in on that soon.
It's definitely not the last you're going to see of JJ or the many faces of JJ. And that's something I'm very excited about. I will say, how old is JJ? He's not even a year old yet, is he?
Well, it's potato years. So,
potato years. How fast does a potato age?
I don't know. I'm just going based off The Martian. They grow pretty fast, man. So I would say like 1 human year is probably like, I don't know, 5-6 potato years, somewhere around there.
5 or 6 potatoes. So it's just slightly slower than dog years, but not.
Yes.
so JJ is going to live to maybe 20, 21 years old in human years.
That would be a huge lifespan for a tater tot, man. They're usually,
yeah, that's true.
Out and then they're gone.
Well, they tend to get eaten. That's true.
Yeah. They have a lot of predators out there that want to eat them. So,
but I bring JJ up because I want to say we talked about him on the last episode. Isn't pretty incredible how versatile JJ is, right? Like the JJ Karloff and using him with the t-shirt and the cover art. I am thoroughly impressed with I don't know if that's being boastful. I guess I don't think we can take full credit for how JJ he's turned into his own thing. He's doing his own thing now. We don't even have control over this.
Yeah, he's like the teenage Groot right now, but as a tater tot, he's just on his own. Elliot over there with him, hanging with him, doing some cool stuff.
Pretty much Elliot owns JJ now. That's his thing. But yeah, it's not the end of JJ. JJ is the many faces of JJ will continue to pop up here and there. And I think there's going to be a lot more Spec Tales. I know we've been down to just one episode every 2 weeks. So all you listeners out there dedicated and listening every 2 weeks, we thoroughly appreciate you. And we continue to work to try to repay you for all of your dedication and listening. And that's coming. I'd love to say soon, but don't really know. We've got some more life events happening. This might be the calm, what do we call this? Like the calm between storms? I don't even know. It feels like every episode is the calm between the most latest storm and the next one.
Yeah, we're just like the Andrea Gale, man. We're just in the perfect storm, but constantly. That's just what we're doing.
Well, last thing before we jump into the first segment, this upcoming weekend is a very important weekend for comic books and a very important weekend for comic book stores, local comic shops, LCSs, as we like to call them in the biz. And that is
Cinco de Mayo, right?
Cinco de Mayo.
Oh.
No, well, I mean, one and the same, right? We have Free Comic Book Day. And this one is, I feel like every new comic book day is just, I don't know. It's for comic book collectors. It's the kid in a candy store. It's the Christmas. It's the, it's a day when comics seem to be universally celebrated. Maybe that's just for in my brain, but it's very important to LCSs. It's a big deal for them trying to get a bunch of new readers, but also just getting people back in the shop. And a lot of these LCSs, everybody felt a boom. There was that, the market went up and everybody was jumping back into comics, and, the retailers were having to go back and price all their books based on the prices on eBay. And it was a whole thing, but there's been a little bit of a dip. So I feel like this is a very important new Free Comic Book Day. But
yeah, we've seen some obviously the economy is kind of where it's at. We've seen some, I guess, troubling signs with I don't know, IDW laying off some people not getting paid, stuff like that. Some creators still not getting paid, and also LCSs, like you mentioned, have taken a hit as well, right? Like we talked about, and I think we're going to talk about this more on a Floppies episode, but some of my local LCSs aren't, carrying the weekly books unless you're a subscriber or you have a pull box. And that's also partly done because of the money factor, right? A lot of people put a lot of books aren't selling right now. Certain books aren't selling right now. Certain titles aren't selling right now. So they're only wanting to buy the ones that they know they will sell so that they don't have any influx left over. So I say that to say this: New Comic Book Day. Not New Comic Book Day. Free Comic Book Day is a big deal. At least for me, in my opinion. It gets new readers in. There's a lot of number one so that people can start off with the number one issue of whatever. Sometimes it's issue 0 because the number one comes out later on, whether it's in June or May, towards the end of May. And there's also some really cool potential spec there for collectors or people that like to flip books, or even just for you to collect, right? So new characters come out usually on some of these. There's some big keys that are from Free Comic Book Day, including one not recently, but I guess, what's his name, Mr. Negative or Mr. something like that, that was in the Miles Morales video game. I think his first appearance is in a Free Comic Book Day. There's also I think it's My Hero Academia. I don't remember. There's a couple of them that are Free Comic Book Day books. So there's also that opportunity there. And then comic shops also like to give discounts on back issues, I know some of them here locally are doing 25, some of them are doing 50% off on back issues. So get out there, man. Get out there this weekend. Bring a friend, bring a child to read that I don't know, likes comic books or maybe doesn't even know about them, and just see how it goes, because it's a lot of people in the community are going to be out there. and you get to meet new people that have similar tastes. So definitely go out there and support your local comic shop.
Definitely. All right. PSA over, and time for our first segment.
Recent pickups.
That's right, the recent pickups segment. This is where we're going to talk about something recent that we've collected or acquired. Jesus, what do you got?
All right, man. I think I have something pretty cool. I've been hinting at this to you, Jake, that I am starting to dabble into one of the ages that I don't really dabble in. I made a decision as a collector years ago, 10, 15 years ago, that I would not dabble in this age. One, because it was so old. Two, so expensive. And three, I don't know. I just felt like, and I don't know, I'll ask collectors this as well and people who listen. Have you ever felt that you're just late to the party, to something? Well, I felt I was really late to this age and I would never be able to get cool books in this age. So I'm talking to none other than the Golden Age. So I know my basics about Golden Age books. I don't know it all. I know enough to, if I see them at an estate sale or in a garage sale, I know what to pick up. I know what not to pick up, but I don't know, the history of them, or maybe some hidden gems, or, certain, diamonds in the rough that are maybe from a artist or writer that has been overlooked, or maybe people aren't looking at there because it's maybe doesn't have the greatest cover or whatever. Right. But I wanted to get versed on that because I'm going to start trying to, get some of these books that I think are cool, that are horror related. Obviously, everybody knows the big books, the decapitation books, whatever. But there's also some other cool books in there. But how would I know about these other books unless I did my research? And I also wanted to talk about it because it's pretty interesting. So I picked up this book, this huge, oversized book called The Photojournal Guide to Comic Books, Volume 1, A through J, compiled by Ernst and Mary Gerber. So this book, you've heard of this book, right?
Yes,
Jake?
yes, I have.
So our good friend Ryan at Automatic Comics has talked about this on his channel.
Yes, he
said
has.
that if you're going to be into Golden Age, this is a huge resource because it has almost all of the covers from every book, Golden Age book in here. And it also has, so it's really interesting. So Ernst and Mary went around the U.S. talking to dealers and collectors with huge collections and took the pictures themselves and basically indexed out all these books. There's some that are so rare in here that they don't even have a picture. They couldn't even find a copy of it, right? So the other thing about that is there's a I guess, controversy to an extent of, he has like a Gerber scale is what he calls it, where like right now, I guess from of scarcity, right, of a book. So for example, there's certain books from the Golden Age that there's only 10 of them known to exist. So the scarcity scale,
damn,
I think he has it up to 6 or something like that. And so basically, and it'll say too, for example, the highest known is an 8.0, for example. So then in his mind, or the way he does the scale, that 8.0 is really a 10 because there's nothing known that's higher than that. So some collectors like that. Some collectors understand the logic. I mean, maybe not even understand. They just agree with it, agree with the logic, because there's literally nothing better. But at the same time, the scale on CGC, or how, not even CGC, just how it was graded before CGC was even, created, it's a scale all the way up to 10.
Yep.
Right. So the 10 should be, and you got an 8.0 of that rare book, but you'll never get a 10. So you see what I'm saying? So where there's some like controversy with that, some collectors go by it, some don't. But it's really cool because I started looking into Heritage and looking into some of those auctions for Golden Age books. And some books, obviously the more, what is it called? Favorite books, or the books that people value more, go for more, go fast. But there's some books on there that if you look by this book, they're rarer. They just don't have the best cover, or the cover that competes with those, covers that are well known. And you can get yourself some, like I mentioned, diamonds in the rough, some books that people aren't looking at. And that's what I like to do. And I mentioned this a bunch in our podcast, in our show, that I like to zig when people are zagging. So for the most part, Golden Age books have kept their value and gone up in value. I mean, you've talked about your famous funnies, right? Like it's
Yep.
Still up there, right? Well, there's a lot of books out there, even romance book. I think people are like now starting to understand that they're starting to buy the romance books from the Golden Age. They're starting to buy the war books from the Golden Age that might not have those crazy covers, but they're still legit covers. They're still legit artists, and they're rare because they're so freaking old, right?
Yep.
So I bought this book for that reason, the Photo Journal Guide to Comic Books, Volume 1. I also have Volume 2, but I haven't opened it yet. And then I also bought another book called The 10-Cent Plague, which that's actually a reading book. And it kind of documents the seduction of the innocent and the Comics Code Authority and how that went about and why it happened. I'm about a quarter of the way through. That's also a great resource. At least I'm finding. So right now, only talk to me in gold because I'm all about the Golden Age right now.
Oh, suddenly you're all about gold, huh?
I mean, some would call me an expert.
You go from like giving up on, you suddenly you're just like, I guess I'll do that.
I don't know, man. Would you consider giving up? That's a conversation I want to have as well a little bit. Like, you ever feel that way? That you're just late to the party, man? Like,
oh, constantly.
That's how I felt about Golden Age. It's just like, people have been
they've been collecting it for years, and I think that's the deterrent. I agree. The deterrent is you assume all of the best books are expensive, which, I mean, they can be, right? Like, that's a part of it. And then you also assume that there are so many people because they've been collecting for so long. Like, I look at Ryan over at Automatic Comics and I'm like, dude, his Golden Age knowledge is ridiculous. It's just daunting. Even to have a but even to get into a conversation with him about it, I'm like, man, I need like Google pulled up on my phone just to talk to him about but that's the thing, that it's not, there's no gatekeeping in this particular case, right? At least Ryan is not. Ryan is actually putting information out in an attempt to educate people even more.
Yes, for sure.
And he really does. Weekly on his YouTube, he's really giving out a lot of great information, especially on Golden Age books.
Yeah, man. And if I could just, speak to that real quick, I've gotten so much from his YouTube channel, man. And another tidbit that I'll give out that's probably going to hurt me in the long run because I'm giving out the same information that I gleaned from him that helps me. But like, one thing that I look for now because of him is detached covers in the Golden Age, because it doesn't matter, right? Like, if it presents very well and it's a 1.0, but it looks like a 3.0, and they got knocked down to a 1.0 because it's a detached cover, who cares? Those books are so rare. You just need to get your hands on one and get one that's
that's my Famous Funnies, right? Famous Funnies 214. The cover is detached, and I certainly knocks it down because it's a 1.5. However, I've seen 2.0, 3.0s that don't look quite as nice as my 1.5, simply because I do have a detached cover, but it is graded and it's slabbed, and I don't need to take it out of there.
Exactly.
If you're the type of individual that really wants to feel it, hold it, read it yourself, great. I mean, you go and collect those books. But for me, I just want to have, for me, especially Golden Age, it's about that Frazetta cover. It's about that and having it in a presentable condition. If I wanted to read it, I would go online. And that's my opinion on it, but I know everybody's welcome to have their own.
Yeah, for sure. And so I just wanted to talk about that. And, it's hard, right? It's hard to get into Golden Age books. It's hard to find them. It's hard to find them at decent prices. The collections out there that are like mom and pop that or what is it called, like barn finds and stuff, are getting harder and harder to find.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, man. So they're rare. They're interesting. They're really cool. There's a lot of cool different ones.
The barns are all searched. People have searched all the barns everywhere.
All the barns are searched. There's no more barns to search. I mean, barns aren't even a thing anymore, right? Yeah, like they were outlawed. So
after you searched them, you burned them down so that nobody would have to search that barn again.
Yeah, and anybody who built them in it, right? Like they just Why did you do a barn? Right?
Oh, nobody builds new barns. There's no such thing. Except the Amish. Yeah, those
yeah, and they'll build them in a day.
Amish,
which we let those slide because they'll get built in one day.
Actually, that's funny. You know how many comic books are probably in Amish barns because nobody goes near them.
How many?
There's probably tons, right? There's probably just tons of Amish collections out there. All right, moving on from the Amish talk. Hey, Zeus, I've got something here. You're aware of it. I talked to you about it before we jumped on to the recording. We both actually received copies of these books. I'm going to talk about something. We received these books back in March, and it was somebody, they had reached out to us through our website, spectalespodcast.com, and they wanted to know if we would be interested in reading their comic. And it was, you know, as it can be when you get a cold call email with somebody wanting you to read their book, they're hit or miss, right? And in my opinion, this is an absolute hit. It is very perfect and appropriate for our content, what we do. This is the Brooding Muse. So this is a horror magazine or magazine style comic book. So very reminiscent of creepy and eerie magazines back from, we've talked about over and over all the time, which we love, but it is a horror comic magazine. So
modern take.
Yes, exactly. The pages, I love black and white on the inside. The pages, the paper even feels like some of the old stuff from the creepy and eerie. So the interiors are all black and white. The covers are in color. Like I said, very reminiscent. So this is, I'll give you a little bit more information about them because I'm not doing them justice just yet. So they sent us the first and the third books. And the reason they sent us the first and the third was because the second and the fourth are sold out. You can find out more if you'd like going to broodingmuse.com. They have 4 books currently. The second and third or fourth you can get digitally. The first, actually, issues 1 through 4 are all sold out now. I believe you can get them all digitally still, but the first 4 issues are now sold out. They were not sold out when we initially got the books themselves. But it is broodingmuse.com, and I believe it is Cherry Bomb Comics. Yep, Cherry Bomb Comics. You can find the Brooding Muse on Instagram. But here's what I would say. The artwork, the artwork is every story, they've got unique artists for each storyline. The artwork somewhat reminds me of the old creepy and eerie, but also, new style, new age, new artists. It's all very well done, extremely well made. And I would say that the thing that I like the best is they're not all happy endings in these books. And that was one of the things that I always liked about creepy and eerie was, these storylines, these mini stories of sorts, they would go on for 8 or 12 pages and they didn't always end happy. And most of the time they ended in like a weird, humorous, sad way where you're like, oh shit, that's the way it ends. And I do think that the Brooding Muse brings that flavor. It brings that spice. So I was able to read through book number 1, and I'm looking forward to reading book 2 and 3 and 4. So that I wanted to thank them. It might be something I don't have a whole lot of information from them as far as where they're going from here. So we might have to try to talk to somebody over at the Brooding Muse. They did reach out to us via email, so we'll see. I like it. I do want to recommend everybody go and check it out. If that sounds like your bag, go to thebroodingmuse.com. What do you got, Jesus?
No, I just want to say, I received those books as well. I have not had a chance to read them. They literally are on the top of my reading list. I definitely want to read them. I'm going to read them. I'm really excited about reading them. And apparently, I mean, if they're sold out, there's an audience for it, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I, I've been thinking about this, and I think we talked a little bit to Lance over at Gold Key, man. Like, some of the Gold Key stuff was like painted covers, right? Like, nobody was doing that anymore, right? So the same thing with this. Nobody's doing magazine style, horror magazines like eerie or creepy. As far as like bringing it into newer,
the modern age.
The modern age. So I'm really excited about it, man. I'm glad that they're sold out. That means that they're doing very well if it's selling out. So yeah, I definitely want to have somebody on if we can get a Grail tale out of them and then talk, pick their brain on it. But obviously I got to read these first, and I'm really excited about it.
Certainly good stuff.
Grail tale. Grail tale. Grail tale. Grail tale. Grail tale.
The Grail tale segment. And boy, do we have a doozy this week, Jesus. I'm going to tell you right now, it's a long one, but we're talking big numbers here. We're talking big money numbers. And I think your golden age comic book conversation, it was fortuitous that you would bring that up. So I'm going to go ahead and first give a shout out to the individual who sent this to us. Hold on a sec. See, that's the funny thing. I just had it pulled up, and now I don't. Man, I'm really on the ball today. Here we go. So it comes from a Jeff Rothney, and he is. If you want to find him, you can find him on Instagram, Canada Comic Pressing. Canada Comic Pressing. He presses and cleans comic books for customers coast to coast, CGC submissions. He is a great listener. He messages us frequently over on Instagram. And initially we had been talking about potentially having him on as a guest, but based on our schedules lately, guests have just been a little bit hard for us to organize. Obviously, individuals are willing to come on, but it's more us trying to, get our schedules lined up. So he was generous enough to actually type this all up and email it to us so that we could read it. Jeff, I'm going to start by saying thank you very much for submitting it. And if we can get you on in the future to make it up to you for sending such a fantastic story, we certainly will. So let's get to it though. So this is the email that I received from Jeff, and it's in his words. So once again, if I butcher it, that is not Jeff's fault. That is all on me, folks. So he says, guys, here's a Grail tale for you that involves a true Grail book. This goes back about 3 months ago. I get a call from a store owner who was a customer of mine for pressing business a few years ago. He has a store about 90 minutes east of Toronto now, and times aren't exactly booming for him. This is what we had talked about, how, you should definitely go support your LCS. So, 2 people walk in the store and tell him that they recently bought a very old home and were moving in. The previous owners came to the house as they were moving in. The previous owners came to the house as they were moving in to get some garbage from upstairs to take to the dump. The new owners told them not to worry about it since it's just 5 boxes and they would throw everything out for them. A few days later, as they're on their way to the dump, they end up in a traffic light and they stop and see a comic store owned by his old friend or his customer. One of them says to the other that there's some old junky comics in one of the boxes, and why don't they see if the guy would want them before they go to the dump? So they go inside, and he just received his weekly comic order, so they asked if he could look at them, and he asked if they could leave the boxes and come back the next day. Later on that day, he gets to the box and notices about 150 Golden Age books, including some pre-code horror and about 50 older Archie books. So about 30 books deep, he sees a Chamber of Chills 19. Yes, that book. And this has been on his wish list for years. The next day, they call him up, and after hearing the story about how they got books, he decided to offer them 1,000 Canadian dollars. They declined the offer, but asked if there was 30 to 40 books that he might want, and they would give the rest to their kids. So he says that he could probably pick some out, make a deal for them. They agreed, called him the next day, and see what kind of deal they could come to. This was when our author, Jeff, comes into the picture. My buddy called me and asked me how to price some Golden Age Canadian version Batman and Superman books. And then he told me the story of that Chamber of Chills 19 was in the lot. He also told me that he was in debt and couldn't afford to give them any more money. That's when he asked me what I would be willing to pay for the Chamber of Chills 19, so he might be able to give them a better offer when they call back the next day. I told him to make sure that he doesn't let those books leave the store without making a deal with them. We figured the Chamber of Chills 19 was about a 2.0 condition, and although one just sold for $10,000 not long ago, that this one was raw, and we agreed it was worth around $5,000. So I said to him, if we agree it's worth $5,000, what would he sell it to me for? He said he would be happy with 3,500 Canadian dollars. We agreed on that price, but that's when the wheels started turning. I told him I wanted to help him get out of debt and how I would give him $5,000 for all horror books. Now at least he could make them a better offer, and he could also make some profit. So Jeff definitely doing the right thing here, or when given the opportunity, it sounds like he's really doing the right thing. The next day, the couple come back to the store, and he told them he had a customer who said he wanted everything, so it would be an all or nothing deal. He offered them $2,000, and they went to the back of the store to discuss the offer. They came back and told him he could add another $200. He would have a deal. So they agreed, and my buddy was going to make $2,800 profit and keep lots of the books as well. I agreed to come get the books in a few days since he is about 4 hours away from me. So later in the week, I went to see him. I brought with me a giant size X-Men 1 Raw about 5.0 to show him to see if he had a customer for it. He loved the book and really wanted it, so he asked if I wanted to go through the other books to see if I could come up with an offer, so like a trade here. Mm-hmm. Some of these books were so rare that there was one or two on the CGC census, and it would have been impossible to get a value on. After looking through them for a bit, I said to him that it would take all day to figure out what the rest of the books were even worth. That's when I said to him that we should make an old-fashioned deal where I had a book that he wanted and he has some books I wanted. I offered to make a swap for the other Golden Age books for my giant size X-Men 1, and both sides would be happy. He thought about it for a bit and made the deal. I also agreed to press the giant size X-Men 1 and send it to CGC at my cost. So he ended up getting $5,000, and the giant size X-Men 1 that after I pressed came back at a 7.0. Not bad for a $2,200 investment. I decided to get the books in a few weeks since I was busy with pressing. Once I graded and priced the 80 to 100, I figured that full retail was about $65,000. I held back around $45,000 for my PC, including the Chamber of Chills 19. So I took the remaining $20,000 worth of books and had a claim sale on Facebook. Within 30 minutes, I sold $7,000 worth and put the ones that weren't claimed on eBay. I was more than happy with the outcome since it took me 30 minutes to get my investment back, and I was able to keep some Golden Age Batman, Superman, Tomb of Terror 16, Mystic 18, Rocket to the Moon, and of course, Chamber of Chills 19, which after I pressed it came back as a 3.0. It's not every day when you can get a Grail and some other great books basically for free, but you have to love it when it happens. He said, thanks, guys. I hope the Grail tale is entertaining. Jesus, I just talked for like 5 minutes straight. What's your reaction to that Grail tale?
Well, man, that's literally what we were talking about earlier, man, but as you noted, it wasn't a barn find. Right. It was not a barn find. So we got that.
Well, we know it's not a barn find, but now we need to go into old houses. I think that's the only solution.
Yeah. So
Attics.
If you got an old house, just point us to it and we're going towards it looking for Golden Age Grails. But man, the Chamber of Chills number 19 it's just a dope cover, man. It's been homaged a bunch of times. If you guys don't know, obviously this podcast, you guys can't see it, but it's a lady in the background, a blonde. There's a skeleton hand holding up what looks like a glass of some sort of alcohol or liquor, but it's transparent, and through that glass you see her skull or her skeleton. So it's kind of creepy, right? Yep. It's a pretty rare book. I'm looking here at my photo journal.
Yep.
Guide to comic books.
Oh, hey, yeah, you were following along in your book there.
Yeah. So I was following along here. It's a 3 on the Gerber scale, which, it's about average at this time as far as scarcity. It's from 1953.
Yep.
Right now on eBay, there's only one available, rated in a 5.0, and they're asking $25,000 for it. Yeah,
it is a pricey book, and that 3.0, I think could very easily bring, $12,000 to $15,000 is my estimate if he were to take it to market. So a hell of a deal already. In one book, he made his money back easily, and
plus there's a trade in there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's an iconic book. The art, we got to give art credit here. Lee Elias is the artist for that cover.
Yep.
And it's it's one of those famous pre-code horror books that just, endures, right? Like people just love this cover, and the homages are aplenty.
Yeah, man. There's so many really cool covers in Chamber of Chills, the original one from the 1950s. I'm looking at number 23. It's a skeleton and a blonde lady, and the skeleton's kissing the blonde lady, and she's like freaking out. That one's pretty cool. There's number 21 where it's a skeleton looks like he's doing his taxes. He has that green.
Green, I love that one.
Yeah. And there's another one, number 18, where it's like a ghoul giving a guy a shave, where he's like in a barber shop and he has that sling blade. Just a bunch of cool covers, man. So, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there's so many cool Golden Age books that are out there, and you just have to find them. And this one actually, if we're being honest, he didn't find it. It came to him, right? So that's why it's his book, because it came to him.
Yes. And that's always the best part, right? Like I will never fault anybody. I got my famous funnies off of eBay. That's how I got it. And there's no shame, right? I went out and I found that book. But when the book finds you, right? Like there's always something special about that. And I think that's what makes the Grail tale cool. I think it's great. Like the way that those books traveled from some attic, and the people were going to throw it away. Like they were so unaware of the value. $65,000 worth of books in an attic that they were going to throw away. And then this LCS bought for $2,200. Once again, like $2,200, that LCS owner could have he didn't have the money to make that deal in the first place, so he knew he was going to be trading out anyway. But man, that is that is the equivalent of like a gold find, right? Just you find that gold nugget.
Yeah, and the thing about that too is, like you said, it was going to be thrown away. It wasn't being appreciated. It hadn't been appreciated for however long. Those books are going to get into the hands of collectors. It's already in one, as far as this Chamber of Chills number 19, and it's appreciated, right? It was pressed and cleaned, and now it's been preserved in the slab, right? So it's not going to deteriorate anymore. So yeah, I mean they're still out there, very rare though, but they're out there. So I'm hoping that I get something like that, in my wheelhouse. If you guys listening know any Golden Age books that are worth $65,000 and you guys want to sell them to me for $2,200, I will give you $1,000.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, well, and Jeff so nicely said, so at the end of the email, when you I didn't include it in this, but at the end of the email, Jeff said that he likes the show so much that he was going to give, it said Jake, I will give Jake my Chamber of Chills 19 just because I like the show. He will give you, Jake, the Chamber of Chills to ship to me, right? Because that's obviously he didn't actually say anything about shipping to you. I think so I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said, "Hey, Jesus is nice, but I want to give my Chamber of Chills 19 to Jake in gratitude for the show being produced by Jake and Jesus." So he thanked you, but he wants to provide the book to me.
Hold on, is he providing it to the show? Because at that point,
no, he specified 50-50. Jake. He specified Jake. You know what? I tell you what, we will cut the book in half, Jesus, and you can have half, and I will take. You
can hold it January through June, and then I will hold it July through December.
Why do I get the cold months? I don't want the cold months.
I don't know what's cold in Nebraska. But I thought it's always cold in Nebraska.
Not during the summer. No, once again, we need to thank Jeff. Thank you very much for sharing this Grail tale. We genuinely appreciate it. And you know what, everybody? We're going to go ahead and we're going to toss this out there once again. We are always looking for listener-submitted Grail tales, especially during this, let's call it time of need, right? While we're sort of in between being able to get a lot of guests on and being able to work out schedules, we need these listener-submitted Grail tales so that we can share them and do more content. So the more Grail tales we can get out there, if you have not submitted your listener-submitted Grail tale, what are you doing with your life? You need to ask yourself these questions. I know I do. So
yeah, and the thing is, there's so many out there, man, and we want to hear them. We want to listen to them. We want to share them. We want, like, this is a cool one too, because it was Chamber of Chills. Like, we haven't had one of those on. We've had Cheese and Keys, horrific, right? He had a horrific one.
That was
those are dope. Yeah, so I mean, we want to talk about these other cool books that are grails to people. So yeah, man, send those in. We want to hear them.
So Jeff, thank you very much for sharing that. We will certainly try to repay you for that kindness in sharing that Grail tale.
Yes, thank you very much, Jeff. We really appreciate it. We appreciate you listening to the show.
All right, Jesus, that can only mean one thing.
Speculation.
Comic book speculation. Now, Jesus, you and I are old hat at this. This is where we go over some books or some collectibles that we believe might be flippable, floppable, flippy floppable, to make a little bit of cash on, if that's something that you so seek to do, so that you can afford that next Grail for yourself. Jesus, what do you got this week?
So I got something slightly different this time. It is still, for potential flip, but this is going to be a little bit long-term flip.
Okay.
We've talked a little bit of long-term flips in the past, one of them being like Iron Man 55, right? Which is Thanos. Mm-hmm. That one, we both feel the legs on that one long-term should be very, very, you'll do well. Even if you buy right now, you're going to do well with it in, the next 10 years, 15 years. Yeah. It's going to do good, right? Well, in the same vein, I have 2 books for you guys that are selling for peanuts that will, in my opinion, go up significantly in the future. One of them has had a mild pop right now because they announced something. And the other one, it's actually a pretty decently priced book right now, but it's still going to pop even further in the next 10 years or so. The first one that I'm talking about, and I also want to talk about a couple of things with this book, is Star Wars The Force Awakens adaptation #1. Okay. I also think that this book is hurt because it's an adaptation, which if you go back to the 1970s Star Wars, everyone knows that it's an adaptation, but I don't think it says adaptation on it. It just says Star Wars #1, right? Basically.
Yep.
Okay. This is the first appearance of Kylo Ren, the son of Han Solo and Princess Leia, who became leader of the First Order. First appearance of Rey. First appearance of Finn. First appearance of General Hux. And the first appearance of Captain Phasma. All those first appearances. Now, yes, there has been some, both mixed reviews, right? There's been mixed reviews on The Force Awakens, on this whole trilogy. However, we're still getting more. And also, like, I look at my kids, like my son really likes these new Star Wars. He thinks Kylo Ren is legit. He likes the lightsaber. He thinks it's really cool. So he already has those feelings that embedded in him that these are cool characters. So in 10, 15 years, when he's older, making his own money, he's going to say, you know what? I want to get the first appearance of Kylo Ren in comic books. And that's this book. This book, Raw right now, got a little pop because they announced, Rey's coming back, I think. It's going for about $20, $25. You get this book right now, get it slab 9.8. I mean, you sit on it for 10 years, you're going to do well. You're going to do well. So that's my first one for this week. Second one, same premise. It's a modern book, 2017. We're kind of living in the heyday of it, right? People talk about it. People like it. It's in the zeitgeist. And I think we've talked about this book before, but I'm going to bring it up again. And I'm talking about John Wick #1. First appearance of John Wick in comic books came out in November of 2017. This book right now is going for about $50. Number 4, John Wick 4 is coming out or just came out. Which one is it? I don't know.
John Wick 4 it's out. Yeah,
it's out. Okay,
it's still in theaters, but it's probably getting close to running its course and will be making its way to home. Not a home video. What do they call it? Home streaming? Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, on demand, whatever.
Yeah,
right. But there's also a 5 coming because they apparently shot 4 and 5 together, right?
Oh, I did not know that. I didn't know. Okay, cool. That's good.
So when 5 comes out, I mean, you're talking about a huge franchise at that point, right? Well, I mean, we're already talking about a huge franchise, right?
Yeah.
4. So again, same thing in the future when, when we look back in this time, John Wick. I mean, I say he's in the zeitgeist. There's a Fortnite skin of John Wick and everybody wanted it, right? Like he's in the conversation. He's in pop songs, rap songs, they want to be John Wick. They're just like John Wick, right? Because he's such a badass. So John Wick #1, I think you talked about it recently as well, right? So John Wick #1, I'm not saying to flip right away. I'm saying get you a high grade one, maybe one of the variants that's really nice, that's really cool, and hold on to it. Just tuck it in the back of your boxes, tuck it in a closet, and hold on to it for 5 to 10 years. And you're probably looking at something like Walking Dead, right? Like it's not a huge run issue of this book. Not a lot of people were looking for it in 2017 because they who knew what John Wick was going to be back then, right? Like
I would compare it potentially to that of Alien, where a movie series becomes a comic book series. Excuse me, or the famous monsters of Alien or the Alien series they graced the silver screen before they did the page, and now those comics are not just valuable but also very popular. People like reading those, and I could certainly see John Wick living on in the pages of comics simply because the feats that he performs in the movies, while Keanu Reeves is only going to be able to do that for so much longer before, something's going to give out, although Tom Cruise keeps doing it too. So something's going to give. However, it never has to give in the pages. And I could absolutely get into seeing some early John Wick, right? Some pre-John Wick, like some stuff from, how did he become Baba Yaga? I would love to see that.
Yeah, and they made reference to it in the movie where he, all this empire that we had was set up on the back of John Wick. That doesn't happen overnight, right? It's gonna take some time. So I want to see how that happened, right? I want to see what they had over him. All that stuff. I want to see it. And you're right, man. The prequel to John Wick in comic books would, and from what I understand, it's canon. Like it's not. It's like additional to the John Wick universe.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely want to see that. Want to read that. Those are my two long-term specs. Get some of these books, put them in the back of your boxes, and just forget about them. And then one day when they're worth, 5, 3, I don't know how much, you can thank me.
Well, I think that's a good one. I would certainly thank you if I took that advice myself, and maybe I will. For my speculation this week, I'm going to do a few things. I'm going to tip my cap to you and a previous speculation that you have done. I'm quasi piggybacking off of it, but more importantly, I am plugging New Comic Book Day one more time. So this Saturday, May 6th, is going to be New Comic Book Day. Excuse me, Free Comic Book Day. I get New Comic Book Day and Free Comic Book Day mixed up occasionally, seeing that we always drop on Wednesdays, which is New Comic Book Day. However, this year for Free Comic Book Day, there is going to be, I'm going to give you a few more details. There is going to be a selection of 47 comics. So you're going to get your Marvel and your DC and things like that. However, here's one that stuck out to me. Nintendo is going to be doing a 2-in-1 edition of Animal Crossing and Kirby Manga Mania. So here's something that I tried doing a little bit of research. Jesus, I did work. And by work, I mean, I searched in Google. I don't know that Kirby has an official comic book appearance. Now, I'm sure he's made it into magazines and things like that, but specifically comics, Kirby has not been yet, to my knowledge. I did a minimum amount of research to bring you this breaking information, and that is that
he's actually in. No, I'm just joking.
I figured if it was gonna get squashed, you were gonna do it immediately. However, this new Free Comic Book Day, Kirby Manga Mania is going to make an appearance in something that you can pick up, and I believe it is going to be Kirby's first comic book appearance, which I think is a big deal. With how much money Mario just made at the box office, I believe Mario just surpassed $1 billion worldwide. They are going full force into the Nintendo world. I think makes a lot of sense for Kirby to show up eventually. He's a very popular character. The games have all been very popular. Here's something else that you can look forward to with regards to Kirby, because it was announced in February of this year that they are going to do a full-on manga series. So this new comic book, Free Comic Book, that's coming out this Saturday is, I'm assuming, just a sneak preview to this full-on manga series that doesn't seem to have a drop date yet that I can find. However, it does. So the Free Comic Book Day version is going to precede this. Therefore, first appearance, right? I don't know if that's how it works out, but So they are going to do a full-on manga series for Kirby, and that's going to be coming out, looks like, later this year. So Nintendo's throwing down at the box office and in comic books. I don't think it's a bad time to get into some Kirby comics if that's something that sounds exciting to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kirby is one of those characters that's very pliable. I mean, you can make him into, a movie, right? Just like the Super Mario Brothers movie that we just saw, that went nuts. And then them doing it in manga is pretty interesting, man. So I'm definitely going to be picking up one of these. So thank you for that. Thank you for that, Spec. Really good, thoughtful insight into it. So I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And the reason was you would the nod to you was that you had talked about Mario, I believe, last week or 2 weeks ago. I can't remember when it was. It was a couple weeks ago, something like that.
Yeah, it was a couple weeks ago where we talked about it, and you know how a lot of studios are going to be wanting video game adaptations, including The Last of Us being very successful, stuff like that. So,
oh, dude, totally forgot. So somehow, sneaky weeky, they just released a teaser trailer for, apparently they're making a show for Twisted Metal. Remember how I brought Twisted? I had absolute zero idea. Zero.
I really don't believe that, Jake. I think you knew. I think you have an insider badge somewhere where you just call in and say, "Hey, what's been going on in those back lots back there that refers to comic books?" And then they just give you all the info and you just buy them up.
Anthony Mackie is going to be in it. The trailer is actually interesting because it's funny, right? It's humorous. It's not. It doesn't seem to be taking itself super seriously, which I think is probably the only way to accurately do that franchise, right? Like that's just, if you take yourself too seriously, you're going to get destroyed because it's not a serious, like cars driving around shooting each other with missiles, and with the characters that are involved in that series.
What is Death Race? Is it a Death Race?
No, it's basically open format maps. So it's not a race.
No, I'm just saying, like, it's basically Death Race, right? If you take it too seriously, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah. And Death Race, we all know what that was. So, but that's surprising, but lots of video games going to the big screen. The comic book characters were a big deal for a while. Nobody's watching Marvel movies anymore. Nobody is excited for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And but video games, yes. So that's what I am specking on this week.
Nice.
All right. That is going to do it for this episode of Spec Tales. We have made it. We have made it to the end. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening in. If you would like to find us on social media, we are on Twitter and on Instagram, at SpecTalesPod on Twitter and at SpecTales_podcast on Instagram. I mean, if you look up Spec Tales Podcast, you're going to find us. I don't think that's going to be too hard. It looks like you have to do spec_tales_podcast. I should know our handle, but a year and a half in, I don't. So that is it for us. Jesus, thanks for joining again. Any parting words for our listeners before we go?
No, I just feel like we talk about storms a lot, and this is the calm before the storm. Get ready, guys. We should have some very, very cool stuff coming up.
Nice. The calm between storms. That's what I like to say.
There you go. I like it.
All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.